Welcome to the Sisters in Service podcast, the space where stories from active duty veterans, military spouses, and even military brats finally get the spotlight they deserve. I'm your host, Kat Corchado, Air Force veteran, movement specialist, and the heart behind this podcast. I started Sisters in Service because too many stories from our community were going untold. Stories of resilience, transition, identity, and the strength it takes to serve and to thrive beyond the uniform. This podcast is about connection, empowerment, and reminding each of us that our service didn't end when our military chapter closed. It simply evolved. Sisters in Service is proudly sponsored by Fit for Life Alliance, a space where people are committed to feeling better in their bodies every single day, and by My Sexy Business, where you can own a business that doesn't own you. So grab your coffee, your journal, or your walking shoes, because every episode is an invitation to listen, learn, and lean into the powerful stories that remind us service is a sisterhood that never fades. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode, the newest episode of Sisters in Service. I'm your host, Kat Corchado. This podcast started as a way of speaking about women in the military, women out of the military, and, military wives, military spouses, brats, etc., military brats. And I always come back to one thing, and it's, again, you've heard me talk about this, is how invisible we are as veterans. So what I want to talk about today is something a lot of women, veterans, know too well, but don't always have the words for. What it feels like to become invisible after your service is over. Now, you're in the military, whatever rank you held, you had some kind of prestige, I guess. According to your rank, you were respected for a certain rank. You moved up in rank, you got that respect, you got responsibilities, etc. And then all of a sudden, you take the uniform off and you're just Kat Corchado. Not sergeant, I was never officer, but you're that person again. Women have been serving in the military for generations in every conflict, every branch, every type of job. But when the uniform comes off, many of us disappear in the eyes of the world. We don't look like the stereotype of a veteran. So our service is questioned, minimized, or ignored. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the moment so many women experience when people don't believe they're a veteran. How this invisibility shows up in everyday conversations in the VA, in community spaces, and even in our own families. The emotional and mental impact of being erased or overlooked after we've all given our service to the military. And also, what can we do right now as women, as veterans, as allies, to change the story? If you've ever been asked, so did your husband serve with? If you've worn your veteran hat or t-shirt and watched people walk right past you to thank the man next to you, that's happened. Or if you've been in a waiting room full of veteran posters and didn't see a single woman who looked like you, then this episode is for you. I want to start with a sentence a lot of women veterans have heard. You don't look like a veteran. Or its cousin. Oh, I thought you meant your husband served. I think we've all heard a little bit of that, or some version of that. How often this happens at the VA or community events or Veterans Day, even in family gatherings. So I've done several podcast episodes, especially during the holidays, or not even holidays, but military specific holidays, Memorial Day, Veterans Day, etc. And I'm glued to the TV. I'm like this. I'm looking. Because I want to see if they, meaning TV stations, are going to roll the B-roll, the one they've been using for 20 plus years? Or did someone have the cojones, yeah, I said it, to change the vernacular and say, you know what, we need something new? Some women veterans, their family doesn't recognize them as a veteran. And here's why, because they didn't serve in a war. I served during peacetime. Am I any less a veteran? It wasn't my fault that it happened. I'm glad, but it was just the timing. You know, when you're at community events and maybe you're with your husband or maybe not, and no one asks you about your service, but they walk up to every guy they see and ask them about theirs. We're going to talk about how people visually scan for a man when someone says veteran. I did this one time. I was speaking at an event and I had everyone close their eyes. And I said, picture a veteran, any veteran, someone in your family, someone you've seen on TV, just a veteran. Or maybe they're active duty. Doesn't matter. And so everyone had closed their eyes. And I said, open your eyes. And I said, by raising your hand, how many of you pictured a woman? 0. 0. And there were women and men in the audience. No one pictured a female. I'm just putting it out there. You can't make this stuff up. But it's frustrating to have to prove your service over and over and over again. Especially as a woman. I don't wear the hat. Sometimes I wear a t-shirt. But it's just frustrating to have served, to have been a veteran. And in April 1st, it's been 26 years since I've been out, that people still say, are you sure you're supposed to park there? You can't park there because you're driving your husband's car. And just because he's a veteran doesn't mean you can park there. Right? Or, well, we're going to call the cops. You know what I say? Go ahead. Tell them I'm in the store when they get here. So maybe you've worn a shirt that says veteran. Someone still walks past you to shake a man's hand. Maybe you've parked in a veterans only spot and gotten side-eyed or challenged. Hello. Yes. These small moments send a big message. And it says, you don't fit the picture that's in my head. When the default image of a veteran is still male, women veterans become invisible, even when we're standing right in front of people. Here's another story. My husband and I are at a networking event. And my husband, bless his heart, says, yes, we're military. And all of a sudden, the guys are questions going back and forth. Well, where'd you serve? Blah, blah, blah. And my husband will say, well, she's retired. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me backtrack. My husband will say, we're retired military. And all of a sudden, the questions are shooting past to my husband. And my husband will say, she's the veteran. She's the retiree. And all of a sudden, nothing. Thank you for your service, and walks away. I can answer some of those questions. Let's have a conversation about it. Now, this is in our world, our little world, where we spend day in, day out most times. Let's widen the lens a bit. This invisibility doesn't just show up in casual conversations. It shows up in the story we tell about service. How many times have you seen a movie, a TV show, an ad, and even military history books mostly featuring men? I think the only movie I remember a woman in at the time was, I don't know, I can't even think of her name. But she comes to mind. I'll figure out who it is. Give me a minute. When women aren't visible in the story of the military, people assume we were the exception, not the rule. They see us as a side note instead of a central part of the narrative. We were all part of the collective. There wasn't the women doing their job and the men doing their job. We did it cohesively together. And you know what? That kind of erasure doesn't just hurt our pride, it affects everything from funding and research to the kind of care and support we receive. Did you know that most research on veterans is done with male subjects? But when women came aboard, women's health issues, trauma responses, and transition challenges got missed or misunderstood because we're different bodies. We process things differently. Our story shapes the services just as much as a guy does or a man. Well, a guy, also known as a man, not or. I'm struggling today, you guys. So let's move from culture to systems. Let's talk about what this invisibility looks like when we try to access care and support. Have you ever been overlooked at the VA or at clinics? Maybe you're just being assumed to be a spouse rather than the patient. Intake forms are questions that don't account for women's experiences like military sexual trauma, reproductive health, or gender-specific trauma. Veterans programs, events, and spaces that feel like the old boys club. Networking circles where women are outnumbered and overlooked. I have experienced this. When I first got to North Carolina, I went to a networking event. There must have been 150 people, maybe more. 5 women were seated at a table. They were the only 5, plus me, 6. Huddled at a table like this. It shouldn't be like that. It should not be like that. If you're having a conversation about benefits, having to explain your job or combat exposure because people just assume women weren't there. In some spaces, you can feel the surprise when you walk in as a woman veteran. People are like, wow, you served? You don't look like a veteran. And you can almost hear the mental shift from, oh, we were expecting him to, oh, oops, it's you. That's extra emotional work of constantly asserting, yes, I belong here is exhausting. So when systems are built with men as the default veteran, women have to work harder just to get baseline understanding and care. Let's go a little bit deeper. The emotional cost of being invisible. So what does all this do to us on the inside? How about the feeling of being invisible, feeling like you've been erased or doubted after already sacrificing so much? Think about PTSD. It's not something you see on the outside. But yet when someone serves or when they park in a disabled veteran, or not even disabled veteran, just disabled parking spot, again, they get confronted. How this invisibility can feed isolation, depression, and or anxiety. The tension you feel between pride in service and frustration of how that service is recognized. For some women, it feels like we're serving twice. Yeah, it sure does. Once in uniform and then again after, we're constantly serving as proof that women are veterans. That's a heavy load to carry, on top of whatever you already bring home from your time in service. What about identity? When we leave the service, we're straddling 2 worlds. 1 foot still in the military, 1 foot as a civilian. And actually, we're neither of them at a certain time. I can now say I fully transitioned. I'm still a veteran, but I'm a civilian now. But veteran comes first and always will. So identity. Many women struggle with the question, am I allowed to claim the word veteran as strongly as men do? Yes, 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 yes. Damn it, yes. Own it, claim it. However, it's hard to fully feel that when the world doesn't mirror it back to you. You know what I say when I meet another veteran? I don't say thank you for your service. What I say is thank you for wearing the uniform. And I think if more civilians said that, it would make us as women feel more seen, because it sounds like, whether it is true or not, that they understand what we went through. Not what we went through, but what the sacrifice we made to wear the uniform. If you've ever minimized your own service because you didn't deploy enough, or you think your job wasn't that big a deal, I want you to hear this. Your service counts. Your story counts. You don't have to have the Hollywood version of war to be a real veteran. We all had a job to do, and we all did it. I was a program manager for communications. I was in communications my whole time in the military. Was it glamorous? No. But I was supporting the base. I was supporting those that needed things overseas, if they were serving over there or in a conflict. So what do we do? What do we do? Why don't we start by shifting into empowerment, but keeping it realistic? We need to claim the word veteran out loud. We need to go to different local TV stations, radio stations, and say, I have a story. Do you want to hear it? I'm a female veteran. What have you got to lose? Introduce yourself as a veteran when it's relevant. I always say, I'm a proud military veteran. When someone says, please introduce yourself, it's the very first thing I say. I am a proud military veteran. First thing out of my mouth. Wear that hat or shirt if it feels good to do so. Wear it. Correct assumptions calmly. Actually, I'm the one who served. If you don't have anyone there to stand up for you, tell your story in spaces you control. Family, local groups, online. Share the truth of your service, not just the highlight reel. Remember, you don't owe anyone a trauma story to be legitimate. Find or build women veteran communities. There's a lot more now than there used to be. A lot more. Now, I won't say there weren't any when I came out. There were none that I knew of. I'll just leave it there. Local groups, online communities, retreats, social media spaces, all the places. Places where you don't have to explain or justify your service. You're just simply understood. People go, thank you. And that's it. If you're a podcaster, use your voice. If you're a speaker, use your voice. If you're on TV, use your voice to shape services, to shape communities, to shape all of us who have been carrying this load for so long. If feedback is offered to you, whether you're in a clinic, a nonprofit, a program, let them know what needs to be addressed. You know how you go into a job interview, and you have the interview and they say, do you have any questions for me? And what do we say? No, I'm good. I'm okay. Thank you. Ask them, how many veterans have you hired in the last year or 2 years? What's the ratio of men to women veterans in your company? What is the veteran environment here at your company? And watch them shift. Watch them. They're like, oh, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. If they're smart, they will. They will get back to you. None of this is about performing your veteran status to convince people. I don't convince people of anything. I don't justify. I don't say, here's my card. I'm a veteran. You want proof? Fine. It's about taking up the space you've already earned and gently, consistently expanding the picture of what a veteran looks like. Always understand that there are allies and organizations that need and want to hear what you have to say. If you're listening to this and you're not a woman veteran, you still have a role to play in changing this. Don't just say, oh, I'm not a veteran. I'm just going to go over here. You know what I do when I don't know about something? I learn about it. I ask questions about it so that I can speak somewhat intelligently or ask intelligent questions about it. But so many of us today just kind of, oh, I'll be over here. I don't want to talk about that. Instead of saying, tell me more. Visibility is not a favor you do for women veterans. And I'm speaking specifically to women civilians. Ask a woman about her service. This is about telling the truth. Women have always been here, and it's time the world saw us clearly. And for my women veterans listening, whether you're loud and proud about your service or still figuring out how you feel about it, you're a part of this shift just by existing and refusing to disappear. That's our conversation for today on Sisters in Service. We talked about what it means to be invisible after service. We talked about what it feels like when someone says you don't look like a veteran, what it feels like to be erased from the story, the statistics, and sometimes even the support systems. And to carry that load of proving every single time that we're a veteran. You're not invisible to me. You are not invisible to the women who've walked a similar road. And whether the world recognizes it or not, your service and your sacrifices are real. And I'm going to land my plane right there. So for all my sister veterans, sister active duty, please stay safe. Until next time. And always remember, it's never too late to start your impossible. Bye for now.